part 2. So in part 1 we learned about the reflection API and how we can use this feature in PHP to read the information about the parameters, in special the data types of those parameters, so that we can inject the dependencies of an object. And in this part 2 I want to go further with this container class, and actually make sure that when we want a certain object to be only created once and then used everywhere, that this functionality is there. Suppose we want our database connection, and this makes perfect sense. We only want one object and then use it everywhere. Then how to achieve this? This is the purpose of this tutorial. So we create a new property in our container class. Let's say we name it container. This is going to be an array. We need to create two functions, a public function get and then the name, and we simply return that element based on this key that we pass in our name parameter. We return it from our container, and then we need a public function set. We need a name and then a callable. So a callable is a function, it's an anonymous function, and this is a function is going to be called inside our set method. So we simply say this container, the name, and we simply say call user func, and we pass this callable so that we can call that function, and we are done. Now in our build object, in this for each, we actually have to check if this object is already created, to not create it again, and then and use that object that we have already created and it's stored in our container, and we use the functionality key exists. We pass the class name, this type name, and then the array in which we want to search for that key, in our case the container. And if this is there, we simply save it here. So this get type name, and if it is not, and we want to create a new object. Okay, perfect. And we want to do this for our DB. So container set DB function, and then we simply say return new DB, and we are done. Let's see the result in the browser, and we can see that we have our object DB right here. But to make sure this is that instance that we have created right here, let's add some helper methods to this DB class. We create a protected property name, and we simply say public function. We need a setter and a getter. Get, let's see, get name. One moment. Return this name, and then public function set name, the name, and we simply say this name is equal with name. And now in our user controller, after these 3 lines, we simply say this db set name. This is the only DB object. So you see that we changed that name property in our user controller, which means that now the DB object from our container should be changed. So we say container get, and we want DB, and we simply say get name, and let's see the result. Perfect. This is the only DB object. We changed that name property in our user controller, and our DB object from our container is updated based on that value that we have set for that property. So this is the end of this tutorial of part 2.